"Lena, don't say a word. What are you doing here?" The sharp voice sliced through the frozen stillness of the winter morning. I froze for a heartbeat and instinctively straightened my posture. A wave of embarrassment washed over me at the thought of being seen in such worn-out clothes, yet I refused to bow my head or look away. My pride wouldn't let me. Slowly, I raised my eyes and met the gaze of the man who had spoken. It was my grandfather, Richard. A sleek black luxury sedan stood behind him, and the image of my grandfather in his perfectly tailored coat felt almost cruel against the backdrop of the stained concrete building behind me. Above the entrance hung a sign that read, "St. Mary's Transitional Housing for Students." Yes, my billionaire grandfather was standing there, watching me walk out of housing meant for homeless students. "Grandpa." My voice was slightly rough from the cold, dry morning air, but it was steady enough. It had been a long time. Pushing down the storm of emotions inside me, I forced myself to greet him calmly. He stared at me as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Faded jeans, a cheap hoodie layered against the cold, and a sports bag in my hand holding everything I owned. "Why are you coming out of a place like this, Lena?" he demanded. "Tell me." His voice shook, not with anger, but with shock and fear. Fear at realizing that his beloved granddaughter was living in student transitional housing. "There are reasons," I replied quietly. "But I'm okay, I'm still in school, I'm getting by." "Okay," he snapped. "This is not okay." His voice rose, drawing startled glances from people passing by. He stepped closer and grabbed my arm, thinner now than it used to be, his grip tight. "What happened to the house?" he asked urgently. "The house I gave you." I frowned, completely thrown by his words. "The house," I said. "What house?" "The house I gave you 6 months ago for your 20th birthday," he said, his eyes red, his expression frantic. "A fully furnished 3-bedroom house in the Riverside district. Why aren't you living there?" I stared at him in disbelief. A house in Riverside district. I had never even laid eyes on a home in a neighborhood that expensive. "Grandpa, please calm down. I never received anything like that," I said firmly. "The only thing I got on my birthday was a card from Mom. Dad and the others told me you were overseas on business and that there wouldn't be a gift this year." "What did you just say?" His body went completely still. I could almost see his restlessness solidify into something cold and razor-sharp. It was a look I recognized all too well, the expression of Richard, the ruthless tycoon once feared throughout the business world. "So you heard nothing?" he asked quietly. "No keys, no documents, not even a word about it." "Nothing," I replied. "Not once, not even when I was basically forced out of the house. No one ever mentioned anything like that to me." Slowly, he let go of my arm. His jaw tightened, teeth grinding as though he were swallowing something unbearably bitter. Deep within his eyes, fury ignited, hot and dangerous. "I see," he muttered darkly. "Evelyn and Marcus." Then louder and final, "Get in the car, Lena. We need to talk." "I have hospital training this morning," I said hesitantly. "I'll take you," he replied without missing a beat. "But first, you're eating properly, and you're giving me an explanation." There was no space for argument in his voice. I released a soft sigh and nodded. Pretending to be strong was pointless now. And somehow, I felt that the mystery surrounding this missing house was the key to everything that had gone wrong in my life. As I climbed into the car, warmth surrounded me instantly. The softness of the seat, something I hadn't felt in a very long time, nearly broke the fragile control I had over myself. "Tell me everything," he said. "How you've survived these past months, and what really happened to that house." I kept my eyes fixed on the window as I spoke quietly. "It's a long story," I said, "but if you're willing to listen." And so I began. Sleep had become a rare luxury. On average, I slept barely 3.5 hours a night. If I managed 4, it felt like a miracle, like a holiday. Every morning, my body jolted awake from pure stress before my 4 a.m. alarm could even ring. I'd wash my face with icy water, stare at the dark circles under my eyes in the mirror, and whisper to myself, just a little longer, just 2 more years. Between my nursing studies and clinical training, I was juggling 2 part-time jobs. From early morning until mid-afternoon, I pushed through exhausting rotations at the university hospital. Constantly on edge, I rushed from one task to another, checking vital signs, helping patients with hygiene, writing reports, until my legs felt like they might collapse beneath me. In the evenings, I worked as a waitress at a small diner close to campus. Once the diner shut down at midnight, I headed straight to my next job, scrubbing office floors for a round-the-clock cleaning company. That job doubled as my study time. Inside deserted, echoing office buildings, I pushed a mop back and forth while quietly repeating anatomy and physiology terms to myself. During my 15-minute breaks, I pulled a battered vocabulary notebook from my pocket and scanned it frantically, afraid to waste even a second. "Lena, you look terrible again," the diner manager said one night, genuine concern in her voice. "Why don't you take a few days off?" All I could do was shake my head. "I'm fine," I replied. "I need the money for rent and textbooks." That was the truth. I had no one I could depend on. The only reason I was still enrolled at university was my grandfather, Richard, who paid my tuition directly. It's worth investing in anyone who truly wants to learn. That was his rule. Without him, I would have been forced to drop out a long time ago. When I finally dragged myself back to my parents' house after 2 a.m, exhausted beyond measure, the living room was always brightly lit. The television blasted loudly, mixed with bursts of laughter. Spread across the sofa were my unemployed sister, Nora, and her husband, Tyler, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and crushed beer cans. "Oh, you're home, Lena. You're late," Nora said, never taking her eyes off the screen. "Hey, can you go grab some ice cream? Vanilla." "I just got back," I muttered. "Go yourselves." "Huh," she scoffed. "We're tired." Tired from doing absolutely nothing all day. My parents were no better. The $500 I handed over every month for household expenses was treated as if it were owed to them. "Lena, have you paid yet?" my mother asked one evening. "The electricity bill went up. Starting next month, make it $600. "Mom, my part-time income is already stretched to the limit," I said quietly. "Why don't you ask Nora and Tyler to contribute too?" The moment I said it, my mother's expression hardened. "Nora has it hard," she snapped. "She has 2 young children." "You're single and don't have responsibilities, right?" my mother said sharply. "We're family. Supporting each other is only natural." The word carefree pierced my chest like a blade. Carefree. What part of my life could possibly be called that? Every single day felt like walking across a tightrope with no safety net. If I caught a cold and had to miss even one shift, I risked losing the money I needed for food the following month. Still, I endured it. One day, once I passed my exams, earned my license, and officially became a registered nurse, I would leave this house and stand on my own. That hope was the only thing keeping me upright. One night, the moment I opened the front door, the rich scent of roasted beef and red wine hit me full force. My stomach growled loudly, betraying me. That day, lunch had been nothing more than a single jelly drink swallowed in a hurry. I felt lightheaded from hunger and exhaustion, yet I already knew this feast wasn't meant for me. When I stepped into the living room, it felt like crossing into another world. The dining table was overflowing with elaborate dishes. Sitting there, laughing and eating happily, were my mother Evelyn, my father Marcus, my sister Nora, her husband Tyler, and their 2 young sons. "Oh, you're back," my mother said, pausing mid-bite as she finally noticed me. In her eyes, I caught a flicker of irritation, as though my presence was an inconvenience. "Welcome home," she added coolly. "But I'm afraid today is Nora's recovering from childcare celebration. We didn't prepare anything for you." Without replying, I slipped off my shoes and walked straight to the kitchen refrigerator. There should have been the salad chicken I'd splurged on with my own money after getting paid yesterday, my lunch for the next day. But when I opened the fridge, it was gone. "Where's my chicken?" I asked. When I turned around, Tyler dabbed sauce from his mouth with a napkin and answered casually. "Oh, that. Sorry about that. I used it earlier as an appetizer. The expiration date was coming up anyway, so I took care of it." "Took care of it," I said, my voice tightening. "That was my lunch for tomorrow. I paid for it myself." "Don't be so dramatic, Lena," Nora interrupted, lazily swirling the wine in her glass. "It was only a few dollars." "Why are you making such a big deal out of it?" my mother said impatiently. "Tyler is under a lot of pressure trying to find a job. If you're family, shouldn't you want your brother-in-law to at least eat properly?" The truth was, the last time Tyler had gone to a job interview was more than 6 months ago. I knew exactly how he spent his days, online games and non-stop sports channels. "My pay is barely anything," I said, my voice shaking. "Do you have any idea how many hours I have to work just to afford that chicken?" The moment my voice rose, my father, Marcus, slammed his palm down on the table. "Lena, how dare you speak to your sister like that?" he snapped. "You're being selfish and small-minded." Then his expression shifted, as if he'd made a decision. "This is actually a good chance to talk about finances," he said. He placed a thick envelope on the table. From the visible bulge inside, I could tell it was filled with cash. But he didn't slide it toward me. He pushed it toward Nora. "Here," he said. "This is this month's allowance. There's $2,000 inside." My eyes widened. $2,000. Handed over without hesitation, to a daughter who didn't work at all. "Thank you, Dad," Nora said happily, clutching the envelope to her chest with a radiant smile. "This really helps." "Wait," I said sharply. "Dad, when I asked you for help with my textbook expenses last week, you said you couldn't afford it. So how can you give Nora that much money every single month?" My mother answered with a tired sigh. "Lena, you just don't understand," Evelyn said. "Nora has a family to take care of. Appearances matter. We can't let the children feel deprived, can we? They need dignity." Dignity? Didn't I deserve dignity too? "You're single," my father added. "Supporting just yourself is that hard. Nora and her family are in a crucial stage of life right now." I swallowed the anger burning in my throat and turned away, retreating to my room. But the moment I pushed the door open, I froze. My small room, my only refuge, had been completely torn apart. The anatomy notes I'd carefully spread across my desk were scattered all over the floor. My precious textbooks were covered in crayon scribbles, with several pages ripped clean out. And on my bed, my nephews were jumping up and down, shoes still on. "What do you think you're doing?" I shouted. Startled, the children burst into tears. Almost instantly, Nora rushed in. "Hey, what do you think you're doing to my kids?" she snapped. I pointed at the mess, my hands shaking. "Look at this," I said. "My notes are destroyed." "I have an exam tomorrow," I said weakly. "They're just papers," Nora replied dismissively. "The kids were only playing. You should try being less uptight." She gave me a sideways glance before adding coldly, "Honestly, studying all the time has really twisted your personality." With that final remark, she turned and left the room, ushering the children out with her. When the door closed and silence settled in, I slowly sank to the floor. My hands trembled as I gathered my torn notebook, clutching it to my chest. I will leave this house, no matter what. That single thought was the only thing keeping me from completely breaking. But at the time, I didn't know. I didn't know that my escape, my one golden opportunity to get out of this nightmare, had already been taken from me, hidden away and destroyed by my own parents. My 20th birthday fell on a bleak, rain-soaked Tuesday. I didn't expect anything. Experience had taught me that expectations only led to disappointment. Still, somewhere deep inside, I waited to hear from my grandfather, Richard. No matter how busy he was, he had always called or sent a card every single year. But when I checked my phone, there were no messages, no missed calls, nothing. That night, I returned home late, my body heavy with exhaustion. As I stepped inside, I noticed my parents, Nora and Tyler, gathered around the dining table, whispering in low voices. The moment the door opened, they looked up in alarm and hurriedly swept the documents spread across the table out of sight. "Oh, Lena, you're back," my father Marcus said, clearing his throat a little too deliberately. "Now that I think about it, today's your 20th birthday, isn't it? Congratulations. Here." My mother Evelyn casually tossed an envelope toward me. Inside were gift cards worth $20. "Thanks," I said quietly, then hesitated. Did Grandpa contact you?" The atmosphere instantly stiffened. My parents exchanged a quick glance. "Oh, that," my mother said after a pause. "Your grandfather called. He's in South America right now, setting up a new business somewhere with terrible reception." My father nodded. "He asked us to pass along his congratulations, but he doesn't have the time or means to send a gift." "I see," I replied softly. "If he's busy, that's understandable." Her explanation sounded reasonable, but something inside me felt off. My grandfather wasn't that kind of person. Just then, Nora let out a smile she clearly failed to hide. In her hand, I caught a glimpse of the corner of a glossy brochure she hadn't managed to tuck away in time. "Mom," she said brightly, "don't you think this island-style kitchen is perfect? You could cook while still watching the kids." My mother leaned closer, intrigued. "It really is lovely," she said. "And the living room is huge. Look at all that natural light. It must be amazing during the day." "Are you all moving?" I asked quietly. Nora turned to me with a triumphant smile. "Yes, we finally found a house worthy of us." "Oh, did Tyler find a job?" I asked cautiously. "Watch your tone," he snapped, holding a beer. "This isn't about that. This is just our luck turning around," Nora added smugly. "Life isn't so bad after all." I lost interest and walked to my room. They probably got more money from our parents again. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that hidden among the documents they'd concealed was a property deed with my name on it. The beautiful house Nora was celebrating. It was the very house my grandfather Richard had given me. The truth came crashing down abruptly the week after my birthday. "I'll get straight to the point," my father Marcus said, businesslike after dinner. "We're moving out of this apartment at the end of the month." "Moving out? Where to?" I asked, heart hammering. "We're moving to Nora's new house," my mother Evelyn added. "It's a wonderful place. We'll all live together and help care for the grandchildren." Nora snorted proudly. "Exactly. There are plenty of rooms. In exchange for taking care of Mom and Dad in their old age, we made sure there's plenty of space for everyone." "How did you even afford that?" I asked, incredulous. "That's none of your concern," my father snapped sharply. "What matters is this: there's no room for you there." Time seemed to stop. What do you mean?" I stammered. "Exactly what it sounds like," my father said. "That house is a sanctuary for Nora's family. You're 20 now, aren't you? Isn't it shameful for an adult daughter to keep clinging to her parents?" "Clinging," I said, voice trembling. "I pay my own tuition and living costs. If anyone is clinging, it's Nora and her husband." "Watch your tone," my father roared. "Your sister has just seized a major opportunity in life, and instead of celebrating her success, all you do is think about yourself and where you'll live. How selfish can you be?" "Selfish? You're telling me I'm losing my home," I yelled. "That's exactly why we're telling you to become independent," my mother said softly, but her eyes were cold as ice. "Take this as your chance to start living independently," my mother Evelyn said coldly. "You'll be out by the weekend. Pack your things and leave. We won't tell you our new address. This is tough love, so you don't come crawling back. Try to understand our intentions as parents, parental love." Parental love? How could they even utter that phrase? Their true motives were painfully clear. They no longer needed the money I earned. That weekend, I left the apartment carrying 2 suitcases stuffed with everything I owned, plus a single backpack. My family had already packed up and left without me. With nowhere else to go, I eventually ended up at a student transitional housing facility on the outskirts of town. The nights there were never peaceful. Coughing echoed from every corner. Moans came from those trapped in nightmares. The sharp stench of bleach mingled with mold permeated the air. I was forced to give a urine sample while the bathroom door stood wide open, a supervisor watching. I bit my lip until it bled, holding back tears as I complied. I was a future medical professional. I had never touched drugs, yet in that place, I was nothing more than a number under constant supervision. At night, I clutched my backpack to my chest like a child. Inside were my expensive medical textbooks and the last of my cash. Even shoes weren't safe there, so I tied the laces of my sneakers around my wrists before crawling into bed. At 5:00 a.m., we were woken roughly. After completing cleaning duties, I changed into my white clinical uniform in a public restroom near the station. That was when Lena, the diligent and outstanding nursing student, truly existed. One rainy evening, shivering with a high fever in the transitional housing facility, I scrolled through social media. A photo posted by Nora appeared. In a spacious, modern living room, the entire family stood smiling, glasses raised, gathered around a glowing fireplace. The caption read, "Our first party in our new home, grateful for the best family ever." Through the window behind them, the night view of the Riverside district gleamed beautifully. And there I was, shivering in a moldy bed while they basked in warmth by a fireplace. I cried until my tears ran dry, burning with frustration and injustice. The next morning, as I stumbled out of the transitional housing facility, a sleek black car waited in front of me. It belonged to my grandfather, Richard. When I told him everything, the feared, formidable Iron Man of the business world listened in silence. Richard covered his face with both hands, his shoulders trembling as he wept. "I'm sorry, I was a fool. I trusted your parents far too much," he whispered, wiping the tears from his cheeks. Then, with a determined look in his eyes, he met my gaze. "Lena, listen carefully. That house Nora is living in, the one in Riverside, I bought it with my own money and had it registered in your name. It is your house." "What?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "The deed and the keys were entrusted to your parents through my lawyer. I intended it as a surprise for you. They stole it, deceived you, and even forced you out." A cold shiver ran down my spine. That house, the one Nora had been boasting about as perfect for them, was mine. "That can't be true," I whispered. "It is," my grandfather said firmly, "and I'll prove it." He placed me in a luxury hotel suite and made sure I ate well. While I rested, he made a call to my mother Evelyn. "Hello, Dad. How's the business in South America?" Her syrupy voice came through the speaker. "Going well. By the way, how's Lena doing? I haven't been able to reach her." "Oh, she's fine," she replied. "She's enjoying living on her own near school. She wants to focus on her studies, so she asked us not to contact her too much." A lie. They didn't even know where I was. "I see," my grandfather said calmly. "Actually, I think I'll be able to come home this Christmas. I was hoping we could all gather as a family." "Really? That's wonderful. Then you must come to the new house," she said. "Oh, a new house," he continued. "Sounds delightful. Lena will be there too, I assume." "Of course. Yes, I'll invite her," she answered. Another lie. After ending the call, my grandfather turned to me, his tone icy. "You heard that, Lena. They wouldn't care if you were gone, as long as their lies weren't exposed." He stood and stared out the window. "I've already contacted my lawyers, verified property records, and reviewed the transfer histories. Everything will be examined. And then, Christmas." He turned to me with a gentle smile. "Until then, rest here. On Christmas, you'll wear the finest dress and return with me to your house." On Christmas Eve, I slipped into a deep crimson velvet dress my grandfather had carefully chosen for me. "You're beautiful, Lena. This is who you were always meant to be," my grandfather Richard said softly. We stepped into the waiting limousine and drove toward the Riverside district. Soon, the car stopped in front of a grand estate, its gates imposing and regal. There it was, the house I had dreamed of. A beautiful brick exterior gleamed in the sunlight, but hanging on the front door was a tacky wreath that read, "Welcome to the Smith family." "Are you ready?" he asked. "Yes, I'm ready," I replied. My grandfather pressed the doorbell. From inside came a familiar, cheerful voice. "Coming, must be the pizza delivery." The door swung open. "Mary Tyler." The smile frozen on my mother's Evelyn face vanished instantly. Standing in the doorway were the father supposedly in South America, and the daughter they thought was missing. "Father and Lena, this can't be, why are you here?" my mother stammered. "We were invited," my grandfather said coldly. "This is a party at your new house, isn't it? Step aside." He brushed past my mother and strode confidently into the entryway. The living room was set like a banquet. The table overflowed with more food than anyone could ever eat. On the sofa, Nora was showing off a brand new designer handbag while Tyler lounged, puffing leisurely on a cigar. My father Marcus was gleefully carving the turkey. "Hey, Evelyn, who's at the door?" he called. "Don't tell me the cake already." He froze mid-sentence, knife in hand. The room fell into complete silence, as if the air itself had vanished. "Well, Marcus, Nora, Tyler, you all seem to be enjoying yourselves in my granddaughter's house," my grandfather said slowly. The weight of his words alone seemed to drop the temperature in the room. "Grandpa, you said you wouldn't come back until next week," I murmured. "Plans change," he replied, pointing his cane toward the wedding photo of Nora and Tyler hanging on the wall. "Explain this to me," he demanded. "Why are you living in the house I gave to Lena? And why was Lena forced to sleep in transitional housing for homeless students?" "Homeless?" my father rasped, staring at me in my dress. "What are you talking about? Lena was living in an apartment." Silence fell. My grandfather's shout cracked through the air like thunder. "I'm not here for excuses. We are settling everything here and now." "The police and the attorneys are already on their way," my grandfather said firmly. "This is no family discussion. This is a legal reckoning." "Police?" From a distance, the wail of sirens grew steadily louder. "Dad, wait," my mother cried out in panic. "This is all a misunderstanding. We were planning to tell her today." She rushed forward. "We gave the house to Nora. She has a family, children. She deserves it more." She tried to grab my grandfather's arm, but he struck her hand away without hesitation. "There is no misunderstanding," he said coldly. "What you did to Lena is a crime, embezzlement, falsification of private documents, and fraud." At those words, Nora, shaking uncontrollably, stepped forward. "But Grandpa," she pleaded, "Lena is single. How could she manage such a large house on her own? I have children. Wouldn't it make more sense for the whole family to use it?" She turned to me desperately, her eyes begging. "You'd understand, right, Lena? Please, just say you agree." Slowly, I shook my head. "No, Nora, I never agreed to anything. I wasn't even told this house existed. You hid the documents, lied to me, and then threw me out." "That was to help you become independent," my father Marcus started to say. Before he could finish, the front door opened. 3 police officers and a lawyer stepped inside. "Mr. Richard Smith," one officer said, "we're here regarding the report you filed." "No, are you arresting us?" Nora screamed. "At this time, no arrests are being made," the lawyer said calmly. "However, this property is legally owned by Miss Lena Smith. You have no lawful right to occupy it." He continued evenly. "This constitutes illegal residence. You are required to vacate the premises immediately." "Immediately," Tyler shouted. "It's snowing outside, we have children, where are we supposed to go?" "That is none of my concern," my grandfather snapped. "Did you care where Lena would go when she was shivering alone in the dead of winter, forced into transitional housing?" He looked at them with burning eyes. "Lena spent 5 months in hell. You will spend far longer dealing with the consequences of your own greed and stupidity." "Please forgive us," my mother sobbed, collapsing onto the floor. If the monthly allowance stops, we won't survive, my mother Evelyn wailed. That support ends today, my grandfather Richard said firmly. I've instructed my asset management team to permanently halt all transfers to you. I've also updated my will. You will not inherit a single cent. No, that's impossible, my father Marcus cried. You have 72 hours, an officer announced. 72 hours to collect your personal belongings and vacate the premises. Formal eviction proceedings will follow. What came next was pure chaos. Nora ran around clutching her designer handbags, while Tyler tried to carry out expensive bottles of liquor, only to be stopped by the officers. My parents shouted at each other endlessly, hurling accusations in a relentless loop. This was the family I had once yearned to be loved by. The truth was laid bare. They were nothing but parasites, bound together by my grandfather's money and my sacrifice. Finally, my grandfather delivered his verdict. Never come near Lena again. If you attempt to contact her, I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your days in prison. The heavy front door slammed shut. The sound was deep, final, and strangely liberating. It's over, Lena, my grandfather said, pulling me gently into his arms. This is your true home. I buried my face against his chest, tears streaming down my cheeks. But these were not tears of sorrow, they were tears of rebirth. 6 months passed. Spring arrived, and my home was bathed in gentle sunlight. The living room, once cluttered with my family's unchecked greed, had transformed into a calm, serene space. As for what became of them, this is what I learned over time. My parents eventually divorced after years of constant fighting. My father Marcus, unable to secure steady work at his age, now survives with a part-time job managing traffic. My mother Evelyn, after begging friends for help and being abandoned by all, now lives in an old public housing unit. And my sister Nora and her husband Tyler. For the first time in their lives, they were confronted with the reality of having to work hard just to survive. Ironically, the job Tyler ended up with was a night shift cleaning position at the very same company where I had once toiled. Nora, meanwhile, was flipping greasy potatoes in a fast food kitchen, complaining about backaches and low wages. Those were exactly the hardships I had endured silently. From time to time, letters and missed calls arrived from them. We're sorry. Don't you want to see your parents? Please help us financially. I fed every letter into the shredder and blocked every number without hesitation. Would that seem cruel? No, it was a wall I had to build to protect my dignity. I have now safely reached my final year of nursing school. My grandfather, Richard, often visits on weekends, and we spend our time together tending the garden. You've grown strong, Lena, he says, smiling warmly. Through this ordeal, I learned an invaluable lesson. Kindness without boundaries is not a virtue. It is a weakness, an opening for malicious people to exploit. True love does not mean accepting every unreasonable demand. Having the courage to say no, and respecting each other as independent individuals, that is what forms a healthy relationship. Today, I live free from exploitation, no longer bound by anyone else's moods, steering my life entirely by my own will. My true life has only just begun. Sparkles, thank you for watching. Sparkles. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more incredible stories on Justice After Dark. Every like and subscription helps us bring more amazing content to you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think about Lena's journey. Stay tuned for more stories that uncover the truth, justice, and real-life struggles.